Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my lockdown review. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. You guys already know what's happened at lockdown. And I'm sure more than a few of you have been pissed off about what was done there. I'm just going to say this before I get started. When it comes to TNA, we already know this. They have a tendency to always lean towards the people who used to be from WWE or ECW. Or WCW. We already know this. Now, there are some cases where it will work out great. And in other cases, it will be total crap. So, how do I feel about this show right now? It was not a very good show. But I'm not going to bury the damn thing because a lot of stuff in there I did hope would happen. The opening of the show was a 6-man tag. I found out that Sanadin, and I heard maybe once or twice I had heard about Sanadin, like the Great Muta. I heard about the Great Muta a couple of years ago, but I never actually seen him before. So this was something interesting to see. So when we had Yosha, Yoshi, I believe, or Yosha, he's involved. I never heard of him, but I had heard a little bit about the other two. And having Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, and Sabin there, 3 of X Division's really staples, if you're going to be honest, didn't make a bad match at all. It wasn't that bad. It was basically looking at Japanese-style wrestling with a bit of American style and a little bit of European thrown in and some Mexican. Let's be honest, that's how it always goes. So seeing that Sanadin won, and he is the X Division champion, makes perfect sense. But here's the question. Will Wrestle 1 be more involved with TNA? Now remember back in the 90s when New Japan Pro Wrestling teamed up with WCW. They had them together for a little while and they started getting a lot of momentum, and then WCW was stupid enough to say, well, you know what? We don't need you no more. I'm hoping that TNA does not do that same mistake. Continue working together. Look what happened back in 2011 when AAA, and I have no choice but to say, Jeff Jarrett held their championship belt. They made a horrible mistake not bringing AAA stars in and matches in to really spice up TNA at that time. They didn't do it. But if we do this with Wrestle 1, I'm getting New Japan Pro Wrestling and Wrestle 1 mixed together. I'm sorry. But think about it for a minute. It actually would be very interesting. Bring both promotions together. It'll give you more to work with. We need this. We don't have an OVW anymore involved with TNA. We need something. I'm not saying they're going to be a training ground. I'm just saying we need something. Now, the match that I did enjoy, Samuel Shaw versus Anderson. Oh, I was happy about this. They did a good build-up into it. I'm enjoying the Samuel Shaw character. Christy Hemme is being involved to a certain point, which wasn't too bad. And when it came to the steel cage match, I wasn't 100% uncomfortable with it. I mean, I wasn't bored with it. Shaw did well. Anderson did well. Christy Hemme coming to the ring, showing that cleavage, baby, did a good job. But I was actually surprised to see her get dragged into the ring. And then Samuel Shaw choking the shit out of Mr. Anderson, he wins the match. Of course, Anderson jumped out of the ring and he had officially won the match, even though no one saw it. It still gives us a rivalry. I want to see how far they go with Samuel Shaw. The beginning of that match when he said, if Christy Hemme doesn't come out of here, I'm going to fall to my death, was actually pretty compelling. And Anderson said, please, you're not going to kill yourself. You're just going to break a bone or something. Just wait a few minutes. Let me get in there and whoop that ass. And then I'll take you wherever you want to go, you creepy bastard. I liked it. It was a great match, and that was one of the matches I enjoyed. I'm going to get this one over right now because I'm not happy about this. EC3. We already know supposedly that Angle had to have knee surgery. We already knew that he already had a problem with his knee. It was time anyway. But the problem, like I said in the beginning of this review, WWE guys, WCW, ECW guys, a lot of times are put over more than the guys that have just been built in TNA. Now, of course, EC3 was a reject from WWE. He never got anywhere. But it was getting somewhere here. And in a sense, they sacrificed a guy that really was beginning to get really over and getting some real heat to a point. And they sacrificed him for Bobby Lashley. Now don't get me wrong, I don't hate Lashley. I did like him when he was back in WWE. He was good. I enjoyed him. But in this respect, why did you have to use EC3 to bury? You see I'm botching because this was upsetting. I was glad to see Lashley. I would have been happy to see some type of rivalry. And there's a possibility this is going to be one. But they could have done something other than let Lashley dominate his ass. I'm just not sure about this. This is just me personally. You guys tell me below, was this the right thing to do? Let EC3 get his ass whooped by Bobby Lashley. Now, is Bobby Lashley going to be on the roster? I don't know. This might be a one-time thing with Lashley. It may be maybe a short contract. But you never know with I'm about to say WWE. TNA. Because it kind of feels like WWE. Look what we're going to have with Brock Lesnar. He has maybe a 2-year contract. Diesel was only there for a one-time thing or a couple of times before he was gone. So Bobby Lashley could be in the same boat. So I don't know. I do wish to say next. The match that I didn't have a problem with, but I do believe it was a little too long. Manic versus Tigre Uno. Oh no, or whichever. 2 Mexican wrestlers going up against each other. Now, I never heard of Tigre Uno. But I've always liked the Manic character. Well, actually, Homicide. I'm sorry. I know he's TJ Perkins. He isn't a great wrestler. But I do believe he does have some good talent doing what he does. So the match was alright. It was great high-flying actions. I did enjoy the interaction between them. That wasn't bad at all. But I do believe the match was a little too long. The crowd liked it. Just like the Samuel Shaw and Anderson match, they did enjoy it. But I do believe, for me personally, it was a little longer than it needed to be. And Tigre Uno needed to do a little bit something more than just high-fly. I really believe that if there had been something added to it, like saying, "You are nothing," in Spanish it had to be. I don't speak Spanish, but I feel like if something had been added beforehand, that he had spoke in Spanish towards Manic, something Spanish, to piss him off, this could lead into a feud, which Tigre Uno needs. Manic needs to do something. They're not really highlighting the X Division yet, or at all. So they could have gotten a feud out of this. Yes, it's with 2 X Division guys, but it doesn't always mean you need a title. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, might as well get it over with. Madison Rayne versus Gail Kim in a steel cage match. I'm going to say this right now. 2011, Mickie James versus Tara in a steel cage. Anyone else have ever seen it before? Fine. I have never seen a steel cage with 2 women in it. To me, that feels like the benchmark. That's just me. I'm sorry. If you've seen other women with steel cages, you can tell me below where I can find a video on that, so I can really get more into seeing women in steel cage matches or some type of real physical match. But I've never seen one before. And to me, that is the benchmark. Did Gail Kim and Madison Rayne get there? Not even close. But I have to say that they did at least tell a decent story. Yeah, the crowd wasn't 100% into them. They weren't. But I can't say that seeing Gail Kim whack herself into the steel cage, and Madison Rayne as well, I can't say that I gotta show them some respect. They did at least a decent enough job that some of the crowd had a little bit of cheers for Madison Rayne, had a little bit of boos for Gail Kim, and were surprised in some cases seeing them get hurt. In the end, Madison Rayne, I'm botching a name because I'm thinking, why let her keep it? And the thing I'm thinking about is that Leda Tapa has to be given a shot. It has to come, unless Velvet Sky is going to be challenging her. I'm hoping that Leda Tapa is the next one to do this, because they need something more. Now, the match of the night for me, Gunner and Storm last man standing match. I have to say this before I get to the match and how they talked. I said this before, that the steel cage might be overdone. I was worried about that. And for some of the matches, it did feel like it was not necessary to be there. But in this respect, with this match, it was just right. out of all the other matches, this was the match that was just right for a steel cage. And they started the match, well, let me back up. The promos for both of them we've already seen. But they were still good even though they had been repeated. In the beginning, they didn't get into the ring at all. I enjoyed seeing them fight outside first. That was just me. Got into the ring, got very good. In the end, the crowd was screaming, "This is awesome." And it was. It was a great showing for Magnus. No, I'm getting Magnus mixed up. I'm sorry. This was an epic match. Sometimes I botch. I'll say this. It was a good showing for Gunner. I'm sorry I said Magnus. But also, I noticed that 3 things. Gunner had new trunks, which didn't suit him. Those silver trunks didn't look right. He looked better in black. I'm sorry, that's just me. Storm had new music, and he had a new ring attire, which I believe is good for him. He needed a change. I'm glad that Storm changed his look and changed his music. And his attitude seemed to change a bit too. So that really, going forward, will be good for him continuing this feud, which I wouldn't mind seeing for a little while longer. I am glad to see that Gunner won this match. It was great. Now, the 2 matches, and I'm getting it over with now, the 2 matches I did not like, that was worse than EC3 and Madison Rayne and Gail Kim. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Joe versus Magnus. And I believe the reason I was getting mixed up more than just the epic for that match was how angry I got at the end of this one. The beginning of the match was good. The promos were good. Joe being dominant was actually very good. Until the Abyss arm comes out of the damn floor and grabs his ass and pulls him under. I knew the instant I saw Abyss's arm. I knew they just doing a stupid sucker screwy ending. This is just me, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me how you feel about this below. Was this a good ending or not? For me personally, it was not. It was good to see that Joe was able to climb out of the hole, be incredibly enraged, and almost choke the shit out of a Magnus. But in the end, seeing... I was hoping that the Abyss character would have a good manager, because he has not been promoted very well as Joseph Park anymore. He has been overdone as Joseph Park, and we barely see anything of Abyss. He needed a new change. Just removing his mask is not enough. Having him without his teeth is not enough. Abyss is going to be totally underutilized in this situation. Even though he'll probably face Samoa Joe for a while and someone else, what do we get? We don't get something good. We don't. So he's being underutilized. It's just going to suck. And now, finally, the Lethal Lockdown match, which I believe wasn't the best match of the night. I'm sorry. It wasn't. Don't get me wrong. It was good to see the Wolves doing a good job. Austin Aries almost slipping off the turnbuckle because it was sweaty was funny. Seeing Jeff Hardy dressed as Willow and didn't even bother to change his ring attire much. He still came in his regular pants. He still came in those stockings on his hands. It just... I mean, Taz pretty much said it. It kind of looks like who we know already. Taz was stupid for doing that. But it's so obvious. And I said this before. Either they're going to do this really well with him, or they're going to try and do a Mr. America like Hulk Hogan. So it looks like they're going the Mr. America route with Hulk Hogan. That wasn't too bad. I mean, even seeing that. The problem with me was Bully Ray. Why in the blue fuck? Calm. Ah! This shit pisses me off. You use Bully Ray, a guy who was in a faction that died over a year ago, that was dragged out. Then give him a storyline with Mr. Anderson that was horrible and should have, 1, left him alone, and 2, when he came back, if he had to do it, change his ring attire, but did not. So, you're trying to tell me, you guys tell me below, this is what they're trying to throw down my throat, ladies and gentlemen, that Dixie Carter believed that the best person that will give her the ending that she wanted, instead of maybe a Jeff Jarrett, Instead of maybe someone else that you could bring, and I'm stretching with Jeff Jarrett, someone else that you could believe that would be in the corner for her. She chooses a guy that tried to rip her company apart, that lost everything, but then would be willing to help her. And Taz and Mike Tenay could not sell this to me. I'm sorry. The ultimate screw job, I'm sorry, it does not work. The ultimate double cross does not work for me. They should have never used Bully Ray. I understand they wanted to get the ending they wanted with MVP. Now we're going to have to deal with MVP being the boss now. But it does not mean I like it. In fact, by the time I saw this, I knew this was going to be bad. I thought maybe he would do the Dixie Carter thing, which would be stupid as it was. But then he does it for MVP and stares him down anyway and doesn't shake his hand. Is not in his corner. It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right for me personally. It just was crap. And Dixie goes to the ring with Rockstar Spud, and Rockstar Spud looked epic in that checkered suit. I'm sorry, he did. He was the one thing I enjoyed the most from the Dixie part. He did. He looked good. He sounded good. But that could not save this. I'm sorry. How would I rate this show? A lot of things in the show were good. Look, when you look at Gunner and Storm, it was a great match. The Samuel Shawn Anderson match was, to me, a good match. I enjoyed it. The opening of the show, to see wrestling one wrestlers, and now we have Seneca as our Sonadun. Sorry, I said Seneca. Sonadun as our X Division champion gives me something interesting to see. They show Kenny King, baby, as the King of Night again, and I hope they do the pimping shit with him. But that still isn't enough to make me happy about this show. The show pissed my ass off at the ending with Joe and at the ending with Bully Ray. It was not necessary to have a WWE guy be the determining factor of that match. I'm sorry. It just wasn't. I said in the beginning of this review, having old WWE guys or rejects as your main thing, sometimes it can work out, sometimes it can be crap. In this case with Bully Ray, it was crap. Looking at Bobby Lashley, if he's back, I'm alright with it, but I still believe he buried EC3. Instead of just fighting with him and then they separate, he gets his ass whooped. I just don't feel right about it. So I hope you enjoyed this lockdown review. Give me a comment below, and I'd really like to know what you think. And please give me an idea if I should still do my match of the week. See ya!